Aloha, everybody. Welcome to another exciting, positive episode of A Dose of Positivity. And I am so excited. I want to welcome everybody who's on the call in and everybody who is listening to the replay. I just want to thank you all so much for showing up, and also for people who are writing comments either on our podcast or our YouTube station. It really helps me decide which kind of guests you are most interested in listening to. As you know, my guest list is broad but very specific. Everything boils down to positivity. And I invite change makers, thought leaders, and nutritional health professionals to come on to help all of us stay healthy so that we have the fortitude to be those change makers and thought leaders that the world needs so much more of. And I am forever grateful to you all. And before we get started, as people come in, when you're listening to the replay, I know a lot of people have, this is a funny time of day. And, but it's, to me, it's very, very important for everybody to realize this is a live. We start out live, we get things in the chat, and we encourage everybody who doesn't have the opportunity to come on live to put your comments in the YouTube section or the podcast, because I answer every single one of them. And Aaron Smith is in the house. That's so awesome. So today's topic is really interesting. We went from Sally Fallon to inviting Tina Hull on, who is an empath, which really, when it comes right down to it, Sally Fallon is too. And most all the guests who I am inviting on, including Alan Cohen, who's coming up, Alvita Soleil, who's coming up, Sharon Sawyer. These are all just, I'm getting goosebumps right now, just thinking about the incredible people. We are booked with speakers till the middle of summer right now. And I am always open to new guests. And that's why you guys who are solid every week on live, the more I hear from you, what you want to hear about, the more excited I can be to bring that to you. And as long as we're talking about holistic health, nature therapy, and living like the future matters, that's where all our conversations come back to. And part of what Tina is going to be addressing today is really being empathic about what we eat and how that affects our health. Being empathic about, or having empathy of what we feed our minds. Having empathy for what we do on a daily basis that fortifies us or drains us. And how, if you guys read my post this week, and if you haven't, make sure you put your email or give us your email and we'll send it to you. And here comes an empath coming in. Razel is coming on. I'm so glad you're here. Awesome. You will have, it's really a good read. And especially if you're not sure if you're an empath here. And so, sort of like a lot of people, when they get to be 40, 50, 60, even 70 years old, all of a sudden they wake up one day and they listen to something on Dr. Oz, or they read an article and it's on about ADHD in adults, or some other disorder, meaning you don't fill in the order of a confinement of society, you have a disorder. Well, an empath is sort of the same thing. It's a misdiagnosed. It's not somebody, you know, we all have that capacity, like that sixth sense, that intuitive energy, which has been really drained out of us. And I'm going to share this very brief reading because there's a few more people coming in. I want to make sure everybody hears every word that Tina has to say. So I'm going to read you this. This was a time in my life when I didn't have empathy for myself. I was completely at the lowest point in my life. This close, not from taking my life, but thinking that, hey, it might not be such a bad idea. And I'm sure everybody has thought about that at some point in their life. Maybe not everybody, but so I'm going to read this little section, and it's the time when I started to realize that there was maybe I wasn't empath without even understanding the term or the label for who I was. Okay. This was a time when I got up to 205 pounds. I was fat, sick, barely alive. I was a fitness instructor. I owned a restaurant, had a child, but I had fallen and really messed up my knee and my back. And I got too much shit for being a soul-to-soul entrepreneur. I had this organic natural foods restaurant in the 80s, and this is in the early 90s when this started happening to me. I was so tired of people challenging me because I was ahead of my time, right? So I went into the depths of despair. And that's why, if you haven't read this book, I put my jacket on, you're going to want to read this book to see why I'm such a shining light now. It's because I went down the shitter and I'm back up again. So now here it comes. I would rise like a phoenix and I would let old growth die. Not willing to be empty and disconnected from my truth, friends, and family, I acknowledged the signs and surrendered. This took doing the work. I assessed the trauma head on, which came with anger and joy. It was time to reclaim my pride and dignity, as my mother had taught me on her darkest hour. I had gotten the successful business thing down from my mother, and now it was time to get my priorities straight. Full disclosure. Writing about this time in my blessed life, I must admit I relapsed into some disturbing, destructive patterns, and I conjured up unpleasant memories. I breathed a sigh of relief, grateful for the solace and the wisdom gained from my experiences. The heartache is over, but I recognize that if I am not true to myself, my empathic self, I can and will fall off the wagon. That's why they call it addiction, and I was addicted to food and work. A lack of knowing one's truth is hard to digest. Inner demons and energy vampires, they're always lurking. I have learned that it is the fire of your passion and the light of your heart that keeps you balanced. This is a quote by Terry Tempest Williams. For far too long, we have been seduced into walking a path that did not lead us to ourselves. For far too long, we have said yes when we wanted to say no. And for far too long, we have said no when we desperately wanted to say yes. When we don't listen to our intuition, we abandon our souls. And when we abandon our souls because we are afraid if we don't, others will abandon us. Whoa. Thank you, Terry Tempest Williams and Donna Maltz. But anyway, so the reason, like we can listen to these health practitioners and figure out, okay, what to eat. Should we eat meat? Should we be a vegan? Should we do this? Should we do that? We can listen to all kinds of noise out there, or we can choose to listen to us. That's having empathy. And I'm not saying don't listen, don't learn, don't educate yourself, but don't self-doubt and give up on yourself, right? So I'm going to encourage each and every one of you who are on this call today to go deep right now, to just take in a few breaths. and ask yourself, who am I? What do I love to do? And what is my purposeful why? Every day, you wake up in the morning and you ask yourself those 3 questions. You are able to be empathetic to yourself. And when you are empathetic to yourself and you have empathy for you, you are able to be empathic. So thank you for everybody grabbing your drinks, your beverages, and without any further ado, I am going to introduce you to this incredible woman, Tina Hull. She's pretty in blue today. And hi, Tina, wave to everybody. Tina is a restorative health guide. She's a mindset coach and Akashic Records consultant, and she's going to teach us a little bit about that today if you're not familiar. She helps people release and heal emotional wounds without having to relieve them, so that helping them relieve them so that they are happy, they're connected to who they are meant to be. She does this using her signature method called Infinitely You. Tina's been practicing in the wellness field for over 28 years, and she considers herself a restorative health coach that gives results. And it was a title that was given to her during a meditation. Yes. While in Toronto, she had her own massage therapy. She did craniosacral therapy and custom-made foot orthotic in a clinic for 6 years, because she understood that in Chinese medicine, when your feet, that's where all those points are, right? Those trigger points that help you get in touch with your whole being. After moving to the island of Nevis in the Caribbean, she began providing massage therapy, and Tina has worked out of her clinic doing this for 13 years, along with coaching many people how to become the best version of themselves. The pandemic was a large push to move her business online, and she has done that in such a way that it serves not only herself, because she's empathic to her needs, but her clients who still rely on her for her patience, understanding, and empathy. Tina uses her extensive background and passion in mind, body, heart, and soul, and levels to assist people to reach the ultimate goal of pain relief and a fulfilling life. So Tina, I am so grateful that you are here, and I am going to let you share more about all the emotional relief work that you do by asking you my first question for you, honey. Again, and welcome so much. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us today. Everybody say, yay, welcome, Tina. Tell us your story, and when did you realize that you were an empath, and how has it served or harmed you, and how can we help people identify, define what empath is and being an empath means, or beyond being empathetic, okay? Can you? Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me, Donna. And thank you all for showing up and joining us. So, the definition of an empath, and I look up at the dictionary because everybody has a different definition, and I just want to be on the same page. So it's a person with a paranormal ability to apprehend the mental and emotional state of another individual. So it can look a whole lot of different ways. There are actually over 11 different types of empaths, and there's over 8 different kinds of clairsenses, which are your psychic gifts, which a lot of us have as well. So when did I know? Probably defined a couple of years ago. Oddly enough, I've always known something. So there's a clear sense called claircognizance, and it's a clear knowing. I just knew. I knew what was going on with me. I trusted it. I developed it over the years. It kind of fell away through having kids and my husband, and then it came back in full force again. So I knew as soon, probably early high school, and I had this really deep connection with one of my cousins, and I knew she was upset. And so I had to wait desperately until 6 o'clock at night, because Donna, you'll remember the dial phones.
Yes.
And our phone calls were costing us, so we had to wait until 6, and then after 6 we had the specials, so we were able to make the phone call like 6:01 and call her to find out she had a bad day, there was something wrong. So that was just one of many different circumstances throughout my lifetime, and a lot of it around my health has been just a knowing that I can heal. I need some assistance from the medical community, but the rest is up to me, and the rest is up to my body to heal, and then I've helped others to heal as well. So that's part of my story. Is there anything else, Donna, that you're wanting clarity on that?
No, I just think that everybody who's listening to this, I would like to challenge everybody who's listening to this to think about a story, a time in your life where you might have thought, well, am I intuitive? Am I crazy? Am I psychic? I mean, some of these are woo-woo terms.
Yeah. And what's happening, what I've really noticed, Donna, is thankfully for the internet, a lot of empaths are realizing that they're empaths. A lot of people still don't know that they're empaths. And a lot of people don't know why they're sick. And in my opinion, a lot of the reason why they're sick is because they are empathic, taking on other people's pain. And a lot of what's going on is that because they don't know that they're empathic, they're not knowing to look for the information to learn about themselves. Or as a child, they had these psychic gifts, mediumship. They could connect or speak with the other world, on the spirit world. They could see things that the rest of us couldn't see. They were connected on such a deep level, and their parents or grandparents or somewhere along the road told them to stop. And so they tried, or because they didn't know how to manage it, then they also felt the need to stop it or squelch it or bury it somehow because it was too much. It was too heavy. There's some people that I know that are amazingly psychic and empathic on so many strong levels. They then become addicted. And so they do it because they're trying to stop who they are. And it's a fear mode, and it's a lack of understanding. And once you understand it, then you can embrace it. Because in my opinion, too many of us are rejecting it. It's a curse. It's not a gift. And because it's a curse, then they're trying to avoid it. When we try to avoid it, you're rejecting a part of who you are. So you can never be whole, and you can never be in alignment, and you're always going to run from it because it's part of who you are. So that's really important for you to embrace that part of you and to know that you can manage it. Right. It takes some time, it takes a habit, it takes some effort, and it can be part of who you are. I've just known my lifetime. I remember when I worked at a sales company, and I walked into the room. I was pregnant with my first daughter, and I just felt the room was so heavy, and it was just, oh my gosh. I walked straight back out of the room, and the receptionist looked at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, there's just too much energy in that room." And I knew what to do. And I protected my energy. I literally put my hands out as far as they would reach. I circled myself 3 times, and then I went back into that room, and I didn't feel all that negative energy again.
Oh, that's amazing. That's good. I don't know if I could, sometimes, that's a tool, because I know when I walk into a room, I can read it like a book, whether it's going to be a thriller or a romance. I can see it from end to end, whether I'm supposed to be at this party or at this event. I almost know it before I walk out my front door.
Yeah.
That it's not going to be the right situation for me. And the best thing that I do is I just don't go. I find something else to do, right? But I'm going to try this walking in a circle. But the thing that we're under, and it's really interesting because a lot of people on the call live today are in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s. And what you said, Tina, earlier was so perfect. And for the younger people who are listening to this, we grew up post-depression. We grew up post-World War II. We grew up, you speak when you're spoken to on many, many accounts. We didn't grow up in this new age, like, whoa, it's okay to be a psychic. We grew up in the time when astrology, which was once the way they navigated the stars, and that they learned science, everything was, and then that became like so woo-woo, right? And they blocked us. Women got burned at the stake for being empathic.
Yeah.
And we became militant or controlled and boxed in. And what we're here and what we do at A Dose of Positivity is we take that positive energy and break down all of these walls. Because just like what Tina, what you just said, that is so cool, great, which I'd like you to elaborate on, because when I knew I had these empathic gifts ever since I'm a very little girl, because, and as you'll read, if you haven't already read in my book, I grew up with a nanny from the Deep South who raised me because my mother was sick, dying of cancer. And she raised me and my kids, and she was the ultimate empath. I mean, if there was no way, and she said to me when I was 5 years old, and it totally broke all barriers for me and changed my life. And some of you might have heard this before, but it never can not hear these words enough. Mother dear would say to me, "You may not like someone, child, but you have got to love them. There's so much hatred in this world. There ain't room for no more."
Love that.
Those words struck me to the core. Mm-hmm. At 5 years old, I mean, it was almost like, like when you go to the Holy Spirit and all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm free, I'm born again. And so, Tina, what I'd like you to talk about now is that to everybody who's listening to this, the freedom people are going to experience with this acceptance of being an empath, and how to, like you said earlier, to protect yourself. You gave us walking around 3 circles and, putting the arm out. But what other things can we do so we can let the cat out of the bag and feel good about who we are in someone else?
Yeah, so we don't have to do that extreme. That's what I did in the moment, because I felt safe with the receptionist. Her and I had a good friendship, and she was an aromatherapist, so we had a conversation around this kind of healing and whatnot. If you're in a space where obviously you can't do that without looking a little weird, you can literally close your eyes, take a nice deep breath, and you can all do it with me now. You can have your feet on the ground, and you're just going to ground yourself. So you can just envision roots coming from your feet, and it's anchoring you into the core of Mother Earth. You're taking some nice deep full breaths. And you're going to envision a shape. So it can be a bubble, it can be a cylinder, it could be a pyramid. Whatever you're seeing, sensing, feeling, or knowing, something will come up. You'll either see it You'll just know that that's the shape. You'll hear it, or you'll just sense it. And then you're going to put a protective color. So ask the universe what your protective color is. It could be multiple colors. It could be rainbow color. Again, whatever you're seeing, sensing, feeling, or knowing, there's no wrong. And then you're just going to feel that and set the intention that only love and light can come in and love and light goes out. So it's like a two-way filter. Breathe that in. And then you go about your day. So you can do that before you know that you're going into a crowd, especially if you're really sensitive around crowds. You can go into that if you're going shopping, because there's a lot of people that struggle with shopping because of all the angst that goes in with shopping, especially those who are on a budget. Or if you're going into a family situation and you know that there's a lot of trauma, old habits of ways of being, that kind of thing. So there's lots of different circumstances, but if you do that before you go into these situations, then you can be more protected. And then you're less likely, A, to feel the intense emotions of other people, B, any physical pain of other people, and C, you're going to be more grounded, so you're less likely to get triggered. And when you're less likely to get triggered, then these circumstances aren't as heavy.
Triggers. Yeah. Triggers. And when we think about triggers, like a lot of people who they're founding and there's studies on this, and actually we'll put in the chat the Medium link to my blog on how to avoid triggers. Would you put that link into the Medium blog on this? Because I have 10 different things to help you avoid these triggers. And what Tina was just talking about is hugely important. That breath, that mindfulness. There's a lot of empathic eaters out there. Like when you think about addiction, most people who have addictive problems, not everybody, because some of it's genetic. If you're in indigenous cultures, a lot of people are more prone to substance abuse with alcohol, but there's all kinds of addictions. But overeating and compulsive overeating, which I do what Tina does a lot. I mean, okay, I'm going to have a little ice cream. I'm not going to have the whole pint or quart. So it's not like we don't have to deprive ourselves.
No.
But
all about balance. Mm-hmm. And it's also, so you can also be addicted to drama.
Yes.
And I've discovered that was one of my things recently, being out of some drama in my personal life. So I've been able to now see more clearly. That's why it's so important for us as empaths to have some alone time, have some space, have some time to reflect and to really look into what's going right and what's not going right in our lives. And addicted to drama is because if you're used to it, especially as a child, then it's your safety, it's your comfort zone, it's what you know. So then not being in it can be even harder for you not to be in it.
You know, I love that you're bringing this point up, Tina, because right now with the addiction, it's up like 50% right now. More people are on antidepressants than ever in the history of time. And that includes more people in the world, except the ones that we won't talk about genocide now in this conversation, but it's horrific to seeing these world events and what happened during COVID. It just brought in so much more isolation, but I think it also gave a lot of us an opportunity during lockdown, being not out in crowds, having this alone time, to either do one of almost two things, kind of not a whole lot in between. That's what happens when extreme events happen. Either you win or you lose. Either you get COVID or you don't. Either you go on drugs because you can't cope, or you go into healthy body, healthy mind, filling your body with nutrient-dense food, getting the right amount of sleep, supplementing your body properly, getting out into nature, fresh air, all the things we talk about here on A Dose of Positivity.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at the amount of the population, and if you guys know anybody who is struggling with any kind of addiction, there's a good chance they have empathic tendencies, and bring them onto the show. Let's help together as a community, or have them listen to this replay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The other thing, Donna, sorry to cut you off. What I noticed too through the pandemic is that people's identity really shifted, because they went from being most of their life being a worker bee, mm-hmm. and now having to adapt and adjust to maybe the wife was at home, husband's at work, children are at school, to the wife having to deal with all of them. The husband trying to figure out what the heck his role in it all is. The wife trying to figure out what her role is, and trying to be at all, because as empaths, that's the wounded part of our empathy, is that we have a tendency to take care of people. We don't know boundaries and standards, and we're being codependent. And so it's important for us to realize these things as well, and it can all shift. That's the good news, is it doesn't mean that that's the way your life has to be, and that's the way your life is always going to be. If you're willing to make the change can happen, but it all starts and ends with you. Mm-hmm. And as empaths, we overgive. We care about everybody else to the detriment of ourselves.
No, wait. I agree with you, but I agree with there's a way to be a healthy empath.
Oh yeah, completely.
That is really key, because the world needs us, empaths. I think everybody.
No, I'm not judging. I'm saying that most of us,
yes,
in my experience, especially as women and as mothers, we overgive, and we don't have those boundaries, and we do it at the detriment of ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're not filling ourselves up. We're not doing the self-care. We're not taking care of what we want and need. And sometimes, I for a long time didn't know what that was, even because I came to the Caribbean because it was my husband's dream, and so we ended up here. He's a tennis coach, focused on the girls' dream, which is to become pro-level tennis players. And I was probably in my mid-40s going, what do I want? What's in it for me? And I didn't know, and I had to figure that out. And I also found I didn't have high standards, I didn't have good boundaries, and I took care of everybody else except for me. And now that's totally shifted, but I've had to really make a concerted effort over it.
Right, takes doing the work. And it's acknowledging, just like an addict has to acknowledge first, I am an addict, I am an empath, and it's okay. And I don't have to be beating myself up. And not that they're the same, but actually what I would love to talk about now is, two things that I want to make sure we cover in the short time we have together is, you keep using the word boundaries, and I write about this and I coach with my clients about it. People are always putting up walls and barriers and boundaries and no, and it's so hard and heavy, when you think about the wall, the Great Wall of China, or the wall in Germany, or the walls, just the mental walls that we put up. A lock on the refrigerator door. But what I like to think about that is so important, what you're saying, Tina, about, how do we know how to protect ourselves without putting on a shield of armor, which I write about a lot in Living Like the Future Matters, and when that armor falls off, and how to allow that armor to fall off. And I have found a relatively new way of approaching barriers and walls and boundaries. and that is using pillows.
Mm.
Because we can put a barricade of pillows. Remember when you were a kid and you built these forts and, you know, you wanted to have all these soft pillows and blankets all over you, and just like that, you can be playing and the whole thing tumbles down and the walls fall down.
Mm-hmm.
And you can change the colors and the sizes. And if you get angry at someone, you can have a pillow fight. Or if you want to have fun too, you can have a pillow fight without taking the bruises or the death penalty for that. So it softens the blow. So it's a lot of way of like, as an empath, like thinking about how we can protect ourselves without isolating ourselves. Because I know a lot of people, they get so sensitive, they don't even want to go out. They don't even want to feel. They see someone walking down the road and they go like turn around, or, you know, put their dark glasses on. And when they go out to the store, you know, whatever it is, well, we hide behind. Trust me, I think we've all felt that way at some point.
Yeah. So what I taught you earlier in the evening about that, those protective shapes are going to help you to be able to manage all of that. The other thing is that when I speak of boundaries, I'm not talking about walls. I'm talking about no means no, and being able to say no in the first place, be able to honor yourself. So I had to learn this because my girls would come into the office because I work at a home. Mom, can we do this? And before I would say, okay, give me 5 minutes and we'll go. And then I learned that interrupts my day, throws me off my flow. So now I'll say to the girls, when I'm done, we can talk about it and we'll decide. So those are boundaries to me.
Yeah, healthy boundaries.
Putting up the wall. It's not being protective and being in your shell, and it's not trying to avoid, because there's also spiritual bypassing. And so what can happen if someone triggers you, it's sometimes an opportunity for us to heal what needs to be healed. Mm-hmm. So it's a time to be reflective, maybe not in the moment if it's too harsh. If you can put that protective bubble around you, if you've forgotten to do it before you're in the situation, then do that, or remove yourself. And then you deal with it. The other thing that a lot of us don't do is because our stress levels are so high, and as empaths, we take on all this either physical pain or emotional pain onto us, and it ends up hurting us even more. So it starts to break down our body. And when we're storing emotion, if it's ours or other people, then it breaks down and we get the diseases, we get the conditions, we get illness, we get a whole flurry of things.
Right.
And you have to decide at one point that that's not going to be where you're going to be. So we can flush these things out of us. We have to check to see if the pain is even ours, physical and or emotional. And then if it is ours, then we have to deal with it. We can't keep sweeping things under the rug and ignoring it and pretending it's not there. That's not healthy and it's not healing. And we can't move forward. We're going to stay stuck in that cycle of trauma. So it's important for us to acknowledge the pain, physical, mental, emotional, or even spiritual. And once we heal that, then we can come back to ourselves. My whole thing is about shedding all of it. Because when we were born divine human beings with no stuff, no crap, nothing loaded onto us. You don't look at a child and go, you're a dummy. You don't look at a child and go, you're ugly. You don't look at a child and go, you're fat. You're not going to do that. And somewhere along the road, we got all these messages. And these messages were habits of thought. And they play over and over and over again. And they become now a belief. So we have a choice. Do we believe it or not? And when you're becoming more consciously aware of your thoughts and you're saying, that doesn't make any sense. I'll give you an example. For some reason, I had it in my head I was a procrastinator. And I think what happened is that in university, I would procrastinate and wait until the last minute to study or hand in a report or hand in something. And I, myself, did the story that I was a procrastinator. But it carried on into my adult life. And I remember talking to a friend one day, and I said, oh, I'm such a procrastinator. And she just kind of looked at me cross-eyed, and she's like, Tina, you get more work done than I know that other people do. So how are you a procrastinator? And I had to really step back and look at that and then question it. Okay, what is a procrastinator, and is it true? And where is that voice coming from? So this is something everybody can do. When there's that mind chatter in your head, you can question these things and you can decide that it's no longer serving you. It served you once before, and now you can release it and let it go.
Oh, that is so great, Tina. Yeah. And how we judge ourselves, right? And really, when it comes down to it, when we know who we are, what we love to do, and what our purposeful why is, we have more compassion for ourselves, because that means we're taking time for ourselves. Those 3 simple questions: who am I? What do I love to do? Yeah. What's my purposeful why? And then you're not procrastinating on the most important thing, which is your own personal self-care, and looking at yourself and not judging ourselves. Like we judge ourselves. Oh, I look fat. I don't look good in that color. I used to think I looked terrible in yellow, and it's become one of my favorite colors. Why? Because my mother told me yellow is not a good color for you. Either is red. So I never had anything yellow or red when I was growing up. Oh, look at me. I got a yellow song. I got yellow on. But it took me 50 years to figure out that maybe my hair color changed or something, that I look good in it. And then one day somebody gave me this dress, and every time when I wore it, everybody said, God, you look great in yellow. And it was like, wow, if I only listened to myself, or took the time to look at myself, right? Taking that time for ourselves.
And awareness, because we're not aware. So this is why it's so important for us to pay attention to that subconscious thinking. What's that mind chatter saying? And then we can, once we're aware of it, we can write it down and we can look at it, and we can really I become the investigator or the observer. So literally I'll have not an out of body experience, but it's really amazing how it develops. But at this point, I can literally watch myself and what I'm saying and thinking, and then I can realize what's being said and thought, and why is it really true, and if it's not true, who's it coming from, and then I can just release it and let it go. So it's all a process, and it's not going to happen overnight. But it's also about accepting where you are right now, breathing into who you are, and then journeying to where you want to be. And it's all a journey. It's all a process. There's layers and layers of healing that need to be done. Just last week, I remember saying something to one of my coaches. There was something that came up, and I'm like, oh, damn, I thought I healed that already. And I had on some level. But there's always levels, and there's layers, and it's, I'm in my 50s now, so I've got 50 plus years of all that layering. So we just got to be gentle with ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting because, and I'm bringing this back to COVID because it's still so relative, because COVID is still happening, and how important it is for us there's a lot of stuff out there. The world's coming to the end, how to be prepared. There's World War III is happening. There's so much happening in the media that we, if we don't know those answers to those questions, who am I, what I love to do, my purposeful why, but in all these tips that Tina is giving us to help us to shield from that, because all of those things are like, they're not that they're not real, but the reality is how you deal with it and how you deal with what's going on is what's real. And I know some of the people on this call, I see Joy on here, you have a purpose, to really educate people what's going on. But it's so cool that people who are coming also on this call are people who need to hear what Tina has to say. So it's so important, because we can push and we can just say, we got to do this and we got to stop doing this and we have this and and get all caught up in this, a real negative catch-22.
Yeah, it's the downward spiral.
It's a downward spiral. Yeah. And so it's really important to refuel ourselves. Like I am drinking a green drink right here with celery, cucumber, arugula, parsley, some cherries, because they were frozen for ice, organic cherries. Cherries are super good for your nervous system, super good for magnesium, calcium, really good, high in fiber. And then I have my power shake because I use it from Purium, which actually, if you read my newsletter, you can check out that. But I drink this like all day long, and in addition to eating really nutrient dense foods. But fortifying with food is one way. But fortifying with what you guys are doing today, showing up and listening to Tina, is huge. It's huge for your vagus nerves, your nervous system, and all the stuff that we're talking about. Because you're going to be nothing but a soapbox and a crazy person, because we all know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So we got to take time, like Tina's saying. I mean, there's different ways we can protect ourselves and fortify ourselves. And if we look at food as fuel and not as an addiction, it gives us energy and doesn't drain us. If we look at going to bed at the right time and getting our 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and the older we get, I'm sorry, the younger you are, the baby, and the older you get, it's kind of like that sleep thing. Critically important for especially empaths. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, being in nature, having salt baths can remove some of this layering of either emotions or physical pain that we've taken on. I stopped watching the news 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And I love being informed and aware, and I will check out the news on the internet so I can select what I watch. But it was hurting my heart. Literally, I could just feel my heart palpitating because of all the, it's nothing positive, it's mostly negative, and it's just really draining. So be selective in your watching of the news, maybe do it once a day. And I wouldn't sit there for hours at a time. They do their news cycles. So they have about 45 minutes per person that they usually work with. So whoever you really like to watch, pay attention to that news cycle and then just let it go. And if you really feel it in your heart when you're watching the news, then put those protective bubbles around you, those shapes, and then that will also help you from not being drained through the whole thing as well. So it's good to be informed, it's good to care. So I'm not saying don't care, but I'm saying don't care at the detriment of yourself. So you are the number one focus in your life. And if we all just focused on us, the world would be a better place. No one else is going to fill us up, period.
Yeah.
Add to your growth and your expansion, or they can take you down a negative rabbit hole. But it's our responsibility to do us and to fill us up, to love ourselves, to give back to ourselves, to do what we love to do, have fun, play.
Yeah.
Get back to that childlike wonder, dream, daydream.
Yeah, I love that. You know what? Just you saying that, Tina, is really the culmination of everything when what we're talking about. Like, a child is born an empath. They're sensitive. They knew who they are, what they love to do, and they know what their purposeful why is. Maybe not as to like stop 5G or to run for president. No stuff.
No.
But they know what their basic needs are. They know that they are born with love and compassion and maybe some pain. I mean, just trust me, all babies aren't born into a perfect world. But like you said earlier, all these layers of things, they compound, and then we build these barriers and then walls, and we forget that we have these empathic, psychic, intuitive, just like an animal. Like, that's why I animalize, and I write about it in my book, Living Like the Future Matters, throughout the whole book. It's so important to watch and observe animals and to remember that we are nature and that we are animals. Mm-hmm. And that we, like you just said, like this childlike thing to play and dance and prance and take time to smell the flowers. Mm-hmm. But I love, we have someone who made a comment in the chat, and it's true. Like, there's this collective reality that is exposing deep abuse and suffering, and it's very painful. And it stirs up anger. And Sharon Sawyer's in the house. It stirs up all this anger. It stirs up humiliation. You totally, you're at the mercy of this collective energy that says, we got to do this, we got to bring. And I'm not saying that we don't have to do things, but showing up here and talking about positive ways, take care of ourselves, a spa day, a self-help day, so that when we go back to that collective energy, Joy, who wrote this comment, that we come in, we are that light being, we are that love, we bring that positive. We remind people in that collective energy, in that collective group, that if they don't know who they are, what they love to do, and what their purposeful why is, and they're ranting, that people aren't going to listen. But when we come in with love, and we come in with that is the secret weapon.
Mm-hmm. When you walk into a room and your vibration is high,
yes,
you're filled up and you are overflowing onto everybody else. You're not even, that kind of stuff in your area is not even become part of your awareness. You're not going to notice all that anger and that frustration, and because you're not going to feel it, because you're vibing up here. So vibration and frequency and energy is part of being an empath. And when we feel the lower vibrations, that's when we're also in a low vibration. So we're in that kind of state and we're feeling these low vibration energies. So when we do us and we fill ourselves up and we walk into a room up here, you'll see a huge difference in how everybody else reacts and responds to you.
Yeah. Because
they will feel that's not even available.
Yes. Yes.
You know, those people that walk into the room and you just kind of turn your head and you're like, damn, I wish I was like her. She's just got an aura about her. She's got strength and she's in her power and she's just owning who she is. Yeah. That is who we can be, especially as empaths. Because we have the intuition. That's the gift of of being an empath, is having our intuition. And when we connect and tap into that, we are unstoppable.
Oh, love it. You know what? This is so great because somebody's writing some really cool stuff in the chat, which I just love. It makes me crazy. You guys, I love it when you put things in the chat. It really fires up the conversation, but we don't have that much time, but I really, really want to cover this because this is going to help everybody who's putting these comments in here. Is like, well, what do you do? I mean, the opposite. Let's talk about the opposite and how to identify this so that we can be the change. Like, what is the opposite of an empath, right?
Yeah. So the opposite of an empath, unfortunately, is a narcissist. I had to look that up, Donna, because I wanted to make sure.
I wrote it in my newsletter. You guys put that newsletter in there in the chat again so everybody reads it. Yes, the opposite of an empath is a narcissist.
Yeah.
You guys know what it feels like to be around the narcissist. Imagine being in a room of narcissists or in the collective energy or collective bubble of narcissists. And then you're an empath. Yeah. Maybe it's time to find another circle of people, like the people on this call. We are empathic people. We are kind, conscious. We are here because we are solutionists. We are here because we came for a dose of positivity, not for bullshit and someone putting you down or telling you the world's going to fall apart or you know. So not that we can't be part of fixing that, but we have to get our fix. I mean, we have to shoot ourselves up with positivity and love, not drugs and abuse from narcissists. And I wasn't stuttering because there's many of them. There's plurals there, but we need to turn that, like the pyramid upside down of the food pyramid. We need to turn the conscious cures upside down and all around, and focus on people like Tina Hull here, who's given her some precious part of her day to share her wisdom. And we haven't even we're going to have you come back on again and to talk about the Acacia records, which is, if you haven't heard of that, maybe you could put that in the chat too. The Acacia records is a way of healing our past traumas. And I want all of you to take down, if you haven't gotten my newsletter, take down in the chat there, and we'll also put it in the replay link. I spent hours researching, and this is a really good thing too, like what is an empath and how do I know so much about it, and how do I know I'm one, and how do you know if you're one or not one, and all of that good stuff, and why emotional eating and addiction and all these things we're talking about, a lot of it leads back to being an empath and not having your needs fed and not being filled up with understanding and appreciation, where someone's saying to you, you speak when you're spoken to. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's just one example.
Or you're not allowed to feel that.
You're not allowed to feel that. Oh,
you're not allowed to feel that. That's, you buck up, chin up, whatever the phrase is that your parents said. And a gentleman reminded me a couple weeks ago, we were having a conversation because I did a Facebook Live on my page about emotions. And he was saying, well, as men, we're not allowed to have emotions. And I said, well, yeah, you are. And as a child, you were probably told you can't. So it's, again, understanding where we're at and understanding that emotions are a gift. They're part of our internal guidance system. If you know what your emotion is, and if it's negative, there's a thought behind it which is negative, and then your actions are going to react and respond to those thoughts. So if you figure out why you're feeling the way you're feeling, then that's one way also to unravel your unconscious mind and figure out what's running behind your show and the reason why you're stuck feeling like you're unloved, unworthy, undeserving, not good enough, all these beliefs that we carried for so long.
That's so great. And somebody wrote a comment in the chat. I love this. It's perfect to say it right now. Whoever comes near becomes clear, because you attract that. Just bingo. Right? Like whoever comes near becomes clear, because you are giving off, you're attracting like that magnet. A few weeks ago, Alfonso was on, Alejandra was on, and he was talking about that magnetic connection. If you haven't listened to that episode, that was really good. Maybe you could put that in the chat, or you guys just go to the YouTube station and you can find that replay. But it's very clear what Tina's saying there, and what all of us know. I mean, you attract your tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yep.
And I am so glad that you guys are all part of this tribe. And I want to just give a minute now, because we're at our hour here, Tina, for you to give any closing that you want to say and share with everybody, and Tell is putting in the chat how to get a hold of you, and it'll be on all the replay channels as well. If anybody wants to reach out to Tina, I think you give a free consultation. Is that correct? If people want some empathic love from Tina, or you can get a free consultation from me anytime too. If you're not getting my newsletters, I'll make sure that those newsletter links will be in the replays. And so Tina, please close us out with some Tina love. And then anybody who wants to stay on afterwards, we're going to go check out and see how the pineapples grow and where the bananas flow.
So my last parting words are, love yourself. We will never get what we need, deserve, and should have from anybody else, period. There's external validation will never come. Someone will always disappoint us, always let us down. So we have to, it's our responsibility to love us, embrace your gifts. This is truly a gift. And if you learn how to manage it, you learn how to embrace it and protect your energy, there really is no limit. We have the privilege of being an empath. And it's just the greatest joy. I am so connected with my higher self, and it guides me in my daily choices. It guides me in my decisions for business. It actually helps me create programs, which is really cool. And so I am tapped into the needs of everybody else, but I never, at the detriment of myself, I'm not energetically drained. If anything else, I'm more energized because I love this kind of group call. I love working with lots of people. And if it makes me a little concerned when I hear healers say they feel so drained after working with people. I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to work with me. So it's important to focus on you, and it's important for us to really look at healing what needs to be healed. That's part of our journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Tina Hall. And thank you so much to everybody who showed up today to be the best version of yourself and showing up for another epic episode of A Dose of Positivity. I am so grateful to all of you, and go out there and make it a fantastic day. Put out your feelers and your antennas and let yourself be you. Okay, big love and aloha to everyone.
Aloha. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you so much, Tina.